Everyone. So let us have a quick look at about this chapter. Product recommendation. Okay, so first we have to import the data set we want. Okay, so let us to clear all the variable here. The first thing is we have to import the required module, which is pandas. Okay, so since my data set is in my DS data folders, so I don't have to specify the path for the online retail Excel file. And then we have to import the data set by using the pandas function read Excel format. Okay, it may take some time to import the data set because this data set is kind of large, so we have to keep some time for import the data set. Okay, so when we are waiting for the import our data set, so let me review the data set we have to deal with. The first variable is the invoice number, so we call 发票的号码. And then the second variable is the stock code, the product ID. And then the third variable should be description, so the name of the product, quantity, 数量, invoice date, the day for the invoice, 发票的日期, the unit price for product. Also with the customer ID, and then the country name for the customer's resides. Okay, so we have import the data set as this variable original DF. So you may take a look at about this data set. So how many variables for this data set? So 8 variables. Invoice number, stock code, description, quantity, invoice date, unit price, and customer ID, and the country the customers resides. Okay. So what is the size for this data set? It's more than 540,000. It means it's 54万多笔的资料. It's a lot. It's a transaction records for the online retail. We also to rename, we have a copy for our original data set we call DF. So we use the DF for the data analyze. So we only to keep the original data data set as original DF. Okay, so we have to check the column name for the data set. What is the head? The first 5 rows in the data set. So you mean the first 5 rows, the dimension for the data set. We also can specify a particular variables, the description, the describe. So the quantity for this one, so you may see here the minimum quantity is minus 8,000. Let me see, 80,000, 8万多笔, but it's minus. What is the maximum for the quantity? It's the same, but it's positive. What is the mean? Mean is the average. The average for this transaction is almost 10 quantities, 10个。以这次的交易量最多，平均值大概是10笔。Okay, so you guys have the idea we have to delete the quantities which is less than 0 because the minus indicate the cancel order, 取消的这个订单。Okay, so how can we to check the quantities is less than 0 or not? So we use this compare with 0. Okay, so first you have to mark the variables with the df quantities. So with this instruction, you can retrieve all the quality for each row. And then we to check each row if this quality is less than 0. If yes, minus. If the number is minus, so it retrieve the true statements. If the quantity is bigger than 0, it will be false. Okay, so when we run these instructions, so you get the answers. So here you can see this false because you can see 6 is bigger than 0. That means 6 is not less than 0. So the statement should be false. Okay, so the first 5 rows are false, and the last 5 rows are the same, false. Okay, so how can we select the data which the quantity is less than 0? So we can use this instruction, location. So we have to location the quantity variables which is less than 0. So it will filter, it will retrieve the data which the quantity is less than 0. So we use this one, LOC, slice. Okay, so you may find how many rows we retrieve. 10,000, 1万多笔的资料。Okay, so there are more than 10,000 rows which the quantity is less than 0. So that means the cancel order. Okay, 取消的订单。You may retrieve the data by using this one. So these two instructions are the same. So you can either use this format to retrieve the quantity less than 0, or you may use this instruction to retrieve the quantity less than 0. You got the same result. Okay, so we know there are 10,000 rows. The quantity is less than 0. So next we are going to delete. So we have to delete the cancel order. Okay. We can also to select the data which the quantity is bigger than 0. So how many rows we are going to retrieve? 531,000 rows which is 53万多笔的资料。So it's the original orders. Okay, so there is an example for LOC function. LOC function is used to filter the data. Okay, you can have the comparison with bigger than or equal to make the comparisons. Okay, so we retrieve the quality data which is bigger than 0. So you may find we drop some qualities, the quality is less than 0. So right now the data set is 531,000 compared to original data set is 541,000. Okay, so we omit the quantity which is less than 0, which is the cancel order. So you may see how many transactions we have deleted. We have deleted 10,624 rows, which the quantity is less than 0. Okay, so next we are going to prepare our data for analyze. So with this function information, so you can get the idea what is the data type for each variables. So for the object, it means category 物件名目型的 quantity is integer. Voice day is the day data type. Unit price floating point. Customer ID floating point 2. Country object 物件 object. Okay, so you can see each type for each columns. And also you can check the index is this number. If the number is less than the index entity, so it means they do have some missing value. So here has some missing value for description variable. Also we find the customer ID also have some missing value for customer ID. Okay, so here we have some describe for customer ID, but it didn't mean anything since the customer ID is just the notation for each customer. It doesn't mean the quantities. Okay, so we have to use isNA to detect the missing value. And then we have to use sum to sum up the missing value. So how many missing value for the customer ID variables? So with here you can check retrieve all the customer ID here. With this instruction, we retrieve all the entities of customer ID. And to check is NA or not. If it is missing value, it will be true. If it is not missing value, the statement should be false. So in the previous course, we have talked about yes, true indicate 1, false indicate 0. So you can sum up the true statements. Okay, so with these instructions to retrieve all the variables, the entity for custom ID, to check if it is NA or not, and sum up or the missing value. Okay, here we got this one. So there are 133,000 13万多笔的资料 are missing. They don't have the customer ID. So we have to delete this missing value also. Okay, here is the explanation for list instructions. First, we have to check if the customer ID is NA or not. And then to sum up the missing value. Or you can use list instruction to sum function. You get the same result. Okay, so next we are going to drop the missing value fetched by customer ID. Okay, here you may find here the customer ID with none, none, none. So we retrieve all the entities. So right now, the DF dimension is this one. Okay, so we use drop NA function to exclude the records with missing value in the data frame. Okay, so we use drop NA function to check if the customer ID variable is missing or not. If the column is missing value, it will drop the record. Okay, so we have the result to save to the original DF again. So here you may find the dimension. It will be less than original one. Okay. Also, we do the describe for the customer ID. We also to change the type for customer ID. It used to be floating point. So we change the floating point to int. Okay, customer ID. Okay, so we have to drop the missing value. Then we are going to do the pivot table 枢纽分析表 for the customer and item, which is a customer buy what kind of product. So we have to build the customer item matrix. We have talked about pivot table before. So there are three important metrics for pivot table. First one is index. So you have to decide which variable should be in the index column. Index. And then you have to choose which variable should be column. So since we have to calculate the customers and item metric, so we indicate the customer as index and stock code and stock ID, the product ID as columns, so we can get the customer item metric. Also, to calculate the value for these two, and we use the summation. Okay, here is the pivot table for our customer item metric. We use the pivot table function. So we have to use the customer ID as our index variable and the stock code for our columns variables. And we use to calculate the quantity value by sum, to sum up the quantity for each one. Okay, so let us to run the pivot table function. It's so quick. So we have generate the customer ID matrix. So you may take a look at. So customer item matrix here. So you may see here the pivot table we just created is the row. The index is the customer ID, and the column name is the each stock code, stock ID 货物的编号 for each item. So this metric we call customer item metric. So you may see a lot of NAN missing value here. They have nothing in this cell. So you can find some numbers here. So with this one, it indicates the customer 1, 2, 3, 4, 47. This one, this customer buy the product. This one, 16008. This product for 22 unit， 买了24个单位。So you may see a lot of NAN value in this metric. For this metric, we call a SPAR metric, 稀疏矩阵, because it has a lot of missing value for this metric. Okay, so since we have generated the customer item matrix, and then we have to calculate so how many unique customers in these transactions. So with this function, unique, it will calculate the unique customers ID for these transactions. So we use this one to check the customer ID, the unique type label. So it returns the unique list for customer ID. And we use the length function to calculate the length 长度 of the unique result. Okay, so here shows there are 4,339 customers in this online retail. 所以这边呢，一共有4339个客户啊，在这一次的交易当中。So how many product, unique product, stock code for this transaction? So you can do the same instructions, and you just replace customer ID with stock code. So you can to find out the unique label for stock code. Okay, so you may find array, a vector for stock code for unique. Also, you can calculate the length for the stock code. So here, with this result, you know there are 665 3665项的商品。Okay, with this one, you can do the same. N unique, number of unique. Okay, so we have to retrieve one customers, which is 12481. This customers to the rest. Okay. So what is the dimension for the customer item metric? 4,339 339 by 3,665. This is a big, very large matrix. Also, we can use the n number of unique to calculate the labels for each variable. Okay, for the customer ID, how many customer ID customers in these transactions? We also can check the products which customer buy. Okay, we have to use LOC to filter the customer's ID 12481. This customers, so you can retrieve the item this customer byte. Also, we retrieve the item which for 124 12481 12484 12488. So you can keep all the results for these three customers. Okay, so you may see with this customers 12484, this customer, he only buy this product for 6 units. What else? Okay, buy this product for 2, this product for 6. Okay, he also buy those products too. Also, you can to sum up how many units did this customer buy. Okay, so for these customers, 12481 customers, he has buy 3,304 units from this online retail. Also, okay, so next we are going to use apply function to do the mapping. Since we to sum up the quantity of which the customer buys, but we don't use the quantity. We just indicate does this customer buy the product or not. So buy, so we identify with 1. If he didn't buy this product, we identify with 0. Okay, so let us check the customer item matrix again. Okay, and then we use this function with the matrix we just created before. So we use the apply map function to use the lambda. So what is this function means? If the x, this one here, if it is this one, if the variables in each cell is bigger than 0, so we retrieve 1. If it's not bigger than 0, then 0. Okay, so let us run these instructions. So we get a new matrix we call customer item matrix 0. So with this matrix, you find it's a little different as our previous one, customer item matrix. So you may find with these 3 numbers 911, so it will indicate as 111. So we apply this lambda function. So we also indicate the missing value with 0. So you may find a lot of cells are 0. Okay, so we have to slice some data for us. Okay, so this is our last homework. Customer item matrix 01 LOC list customers. What does this instruction mean? This instruction means with this matrix 01, it identifies how many product does this customer buy. He buys 150 product for this online retail. What is the quantity 数量 for these customers? More than 3,000 quantities. 好，他买的是超过3304个。Okay, so you guys know the answers. Okay, so let us stop. So let us to have some stop for our next. We have to talk about the cooperative filtering. We call 协同过滤法. Okay, for the next section we are going to explain. Okay.